Welcome everybody to Meliora Wellbeing. My name is Burr Roberts and my co-host here is Rosanna Taylor. Today, as you may know, we are talking about leveraging micro moments, your strategy to well-being. So recently I was at a walk on the river, Bow River in Edworthy Park. And as I was walking, there's a sign and a post that talks about how that area and that beach on each side of the river, the north and the south, was used as Indigenous and Métis camps about 100, 150 plus years ago. That's deep roots into me because I paddle down that river regularly every single year, go past both of those beaches, as well as I have recently gone through my lineage and can connect my family to this area all the way from the early 1800s. So I'm 7th generation connection here to Alberta. So I want to acknowledge that that area that we're in is in Treaty 7 on the Edworthy, as well as the Nose Hill Nation, Nose Hill Métis Nation. So today I'd like to introduce Rosanna, one of my good friends and expert in movement. She's a retired figure skater and now an active member in the Junior Forest Wardens here in Calgary with her 3 kids. She has a master's degree in kinesiology, and she's trained under Katie Bowman, who is a movement specialist, a biomechanist, and a change movement agent. Rosanna specializes in pre- and postnatal restorative movement, specializes in feet and how that affects your alignment, as well as functional movement that relate to your health and well-being. Rosanna, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Burr. Thank you, Burr. I would be happy to introduce Burr. Burr and I go back about 7 years or so. We've been learning about each other's specialties and getting together to try to get more people on this train of learning how to do small things for your health that make big changes. Burr has traveled around the world observing different cultures' approaches to health and well-being. She was a national level mountain biker. She played collegiate soccer. She won a national bronze medal, was named to an all-conference team. She was an athlete. She is an athlete. She experienced health challenges that weren't fixed by the healthcare system, and it forced her to look at things from a different view, a different perspective. She's now a nurse. She's trained in 5 different breathing modalities. She's a well-being change motivator, and she is the founder of Meliora Wellbeing. So I'm very happy to be here with her today, and let's get going.
Thank you, Rosanna. So I have a question for everybody. Feel free to put it in the chats. Feel free to take yourself off mute to answer this. But I'm going to ask you, what do you do for self-care?
And while everyone is thinking about that, I'll share what I do for self-care. In regards to health, I do movement. I try to get a lot of sleep. I meditate. I go for walks in nature. These are all part of my day that are non-negotiable to me. I'd love to hear what you do.
I don't know if I'm not on mute, obviously, because you can hear me. So what do? I too am a walker outside in nature, preferably out of the city or at least in trees. And I've always had a home practice in something, and have always, not always, but for 10 years anyway, paid attention to how I move and how well I am and what do I feel like doing versus what I should be doing. So it's a challenge, but it works. It does work. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, I would have to say the same thing with Linda saying. Definitely try to go for a walk. Maybe try to get some sleep in, or sleep whenever I can. But I would say don't have a real pattern, or I would say I put a lot of thought into it, which is kind of why I'm here to kind of learn, I guess, different ways. So yeah, so I guess that would be it, just walking in and trying to get some rest.
Thank you, Daniel. Anybody else want to share or add it into the chats?
Well, Burr, Dale, and I spend a lot of time outside as part of our job. But surprisingly enough, when I want to just recharge, I go outside again. So that's probably my number one thing, is just anything that I'm doing outside, even if it is work, it fills me up.
Yeah.
But another thing that I love, and this is relatively new, is hanging out with my grandchildren. And so today was just a day with them too, and it was full on busy, but fills my cup. So love that.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay, so we talked about some self-care strategies. I'm going to steer that towards specifically for wellness or fitness. So what kind of things do you do for wellness or fitness? And is it something that you do alone, or do you do it with others? Anybody want to speak to that?
I'll start off. I have to say, for traditional wellness strategies, well, I guess traditional is all relative in how you measure that. More current modern society measuring of wellness, of going to the gym, taking fitness classes, that has never resonated to me. Very similar to what some of you have said, getting outside, paddling, moving, climbing trees, wrestling with my kids. Those are the strategies I tend to go for, the more play type.
I love that you mentioned play there, Burr. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Burr and Rosanna, I'm a hill walker. So 3 hills a week has always been my rule. Don't know, I meet that about, 30% of the time, but it's something I do. And then I have a TRX, and I have stuff around. Like, there's many things that I like to do, and I make sure to do something every day. Yeah.
I find sometimes that our self-care for health can sometimes become not self-care for our mind, when it becomes a burden and feels like a list of things to do, and even the motivation for doing it. So if I'm doing my activity because I feel like I'm fat, or I feel like, I have to get control of my physical fitness, then all of a sudden it's no longer self-care, it's a chore. So if I can do things that keep me active that aren't classified under that, or even just switch my mindset. So I'm a runner and I love to run, but so I've done 5 marathons, and I had to actually stop the competing part of it, because then it was no longer for the joy of running. It was because I felt like I had to. So
yeah, I want to resonate on that. I had the exact same thing. So as in my bio, I was like national level mountain bike racer. When I competed, it was all stress. And I felt like I needed to do the same course, do the same thing, and there's all this pressure. I had enough points and I had the option to go professional, and I chose to quit instead. As soon as I quit, my speed and my skill set increased dramatically. Like, I don't know how to really measure that, but if I were to measure that, my placements in races would be significantly higher. I'd be top 5, if not top 10. I was biking with a bunch of men, some of the men who were friends with pro mountain bike racers who are in the mountain bike videos. So my male friends were biking with the pros, and my male friends were keeping up with the pros, and I was keeping up with my friends. So as a measuring stick, my improvement when I let go of that stress was so big. So I appreciate that you addressed that. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
I think the other thing that happens too, when it becomes a thing that you try and schedule and say, today you will do 30 of this or walk these many steps, it becomes a bigger thing to beat yourself up about when you don't do it, because you can't check off that box, as opposed to making it, I used to call it at work, making it a practice, just something you do that you can't possibly not do because you like it so much. That would be the goal.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody has ever thought about the things that they do for fitness that may be specific to your gender. I know that I definitely would go towards things. I was a figure skater, something very girly growing up, and I like to go to yoga and I like to go on things like that versus going to, you know, a kickboxing class or something. I was always intimidated to go to something, and if I did show up at something like that, I might be the only girl there. So curious if that has affected your choice of what you do for fitness. Just something to think about.
I kind of chose things that people said I couldn't do because they said I couldn't do it. So I wanted to go. And I had an older brother, and so I always felt, you know, I could do it as good as he could or better. And that was always kind of my standard. I never really, I was never a girly girl, and I kind of shied away from anything that was termed girly. And like I can remember in junior high, I'm 5 feet tall. I'm short. And I wanted to be a high jumper. And they said, oh, you're too short to be a high jumper. And that didn't stop me. So I went to provincials in high jumping because I could jump my height. I would never make it as a professional high jumper, but it didn't stop me because it was just something they said I couldn't do it. And I wanted to do it. So I did it. So
that's amazing. Okay, so sorry, go ahead, Burr.
Go ahead.
So Burr had mentioned earlier about the things that she does that she enjoys are play. And I really think that that's key. We do things that are fun, that we enjoy, that we want to do. And finding those moments in our day is what Burr is going to talk about next. So I'm going to ask you, what is a micro moment?
Who are you asking, me or the group?
The group. The group. What is a micro moment? Have you heard that term before? What does it mean to you?
So Burr, I don't know if you heard us do the micro adventure talk.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so we've really kind of tried to maximize on the micro just because our lives are so busy. So it's making the most of the little minutes instead of trying to chunk away a huge chunk of time. It's taking advantage of the little places. So the micro adventures, taking the 5 to 9 and after the 9 to 5. So just making time to get away and do things instead of waiting for the big epic adventures that take 3 months or whatever. Just do the little ones that can be fit in here and there. So that I think that's what you're talking about with the micro minutes.
I haven't heard that, take the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5 before. That's a good one. Especially if you're a family with kids, Rosanna, you do this so well. Well, both of you do it so well of really getting outside with your kids regularly. So
I have 3 young kids. There's no 9 to 5 for me. It's a midnight to midnight. But we still have fun. We get out there.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Someday you'll sleep.
So I'm going to share my screen here. So micro moments. So this is Meliora's one of our slogans is re-strategizing your whole being, one micro moment at a time. So what does that mean? So mostly what we spoke about today has been fitness activity based. Your whole being is more than that. Your self-care is more than just your fitness and your movement. Self-care is everything from your self-talk, it's the personal connections you have, your stress levels at work, at home, at family, at activities, the to-do lists, and it's also your health status. It's every single component of you. Similar to a stack of rocks, there's many different layers and there's many different parts of us that make us a whole being. So we are looking at each one of those parts, just not one in isolation. Like the fitness one, maybe that's the one in the middle. Self-talk, maybe that's the one on top. And we're doing this one micro moment at a time. So what is a micro moment? I like the way how you talked about the micro adventures. That's part of it too, is how you can incorporate play and self-care and things that fill you up in your day. But specifically in our reference to a micro moment is going back to this picture. See the ripples in the water there? A micro moment that we reference is like a ripple in time. So it's around 10 to 60 seconds. It's a self check-in, everything that's going on in that moment. So me right now in this moment, me presenting the temperature in this room, having to stay on cue, organize the slides, all the things, slowing my breath down, and connecting with my thoughts and make sure it's all connected and flowing, as well as what I had for dinner, my water next to me, all the things. And in these micro moments, we ask ourselves, what do we need? What do I need right now? So for example, as I speak, I'm mostly concentrating on my breath. Is my breath calm? Is it relaxed? Am I taking a full enough breath so I can speak full sentences? So that's the micro moment, and that's a strategy I'm using in this micro moment. And so you weigh the situation and you implement a strategy. But the key here is, it's like a tool chest. You can have a tool chest full of tools, but not know how to use them, so they're not useful to you. Or you can have a tool chest empty because you don't have any, don't seek any, had some, threw them away, don't use them. So Meliora Wellbeing's, mine and Rosanna's approach is to teach strategies, teach concepts, and give you tools and strategies to fill up your toolkit, know how to use them, and when to use them. And in these micro moments, you want to think about what is beneficial, what can serve me right now. So for example, I said I was using breath work and breathing strategies as I'm speaking. That is relevant and pertinent to this situation. If I started to do, I don't know, cold exposure, and all of a sudden decided I need to go have a cold plunge right now or a cold shower right now to help use that as a micro moment, it wouldn't really be appropriate in this moment. And the one thing I want to reiterate is a micro moment is we can have many, many, many of these in a day. It can be one or two, or it can be up to 100. But there's a fine line between a micro moment, self-check-in, seeing how you're doing, implementing a strategy versus being in a hypervigilant state. A hypervigilant state is an activated nervous system. It's similar to that, how you shared, how going for a run and doing exercise in a competition took the fun out of it. It became stressful, and there's pressure in that. So we want to take away the pressure and just have joy in all of this. So now that I've shared all that, does anybody have any questions about our approach and concepts to what a micro moment is?
I just wanted to make a comment. I thought that was a great description. Thanks for putting that on the screen.
You're
That
welcome.
was awesome. I got stuff from that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some examples of micro moments because we can, in theory, think, okay, this is a check-in. I want to check in throughout my day, but what does that look like? So before I go into some examples that I might teach my clients, I want you to share something that you think might fit into your day or a place you could check in and what that would look like for you at this point of the presentation.
For me, it's that alignment every single time. Where's my weight? Is it in my heels? Where's my toes? Are they going forward? And you need nothing. And anytime I think now, because it does happen that anytime you're out of alignment, you get a little twig to say, oh, you need to fix that. So it doesn't require a lot of thought or rationale or strategy. It's just, okay, I know how to do it. It takes 30 seconds. Yeah.
I just have a question for you, Linda, before we move past you.
Mm-hmm.
As you do your micro moments, your self check-ins, because I know your background, tell me, does fascia or anything to do with fascia other than alignment ever come into your brain, into your thought? Like maybe the sticky bits or something? I don't know.
Yeah. I think that if I'm standing still, not so much, but if I'm moving, definitely. And you know, smaller, like in the kitchen, because there's more bendy twisty. So fascia comes into, my brain lives in fascia, as you know, but fascia comes into it when I make a movement and I realize that it doesn't go as well one way as the other, like unloading the dishwasher, right? So yeah.
So for everybody who's listening, if you aren't familiar what fascia is, it's what keeps us all together. It's our scaffolding from our veins to our muscles to our tissues. Fascia keeps it all together and organized, and where the tissues kind of attached to give it its structure. Is that a good summary, a good way to visualize it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when Linda talks about fascia when she's moving, so if she's twisting, she's feeling her body. If she feels a muscle or a joint that's holding in a way that it shouldn't, or loose in a way where it should be tighter and more rigid and more stable, this is the biomechanics and she's visualizing what is the tissue doing in that movement. Anyways, we can maybe touch on that in a bit. Anybody else want to share?
Neil Code here. Sorry, in my moments coming to this, of course, was in hypervigilance as I couldn't figure out where I was. For me, it's an energy feeling. So as I engage in different places, and particularly with face, in these types of meetings where I'm not physically present, but I am showing up over a communication, it's as I heard Linda was saying, it's that getting that in touch with yourself of where you want to be from an energy perspective. So unlike for Linda, for whom this sounds like it's a skill she's got, I'm still working on that, trying to check in and say, okay, is my posture okay? When I position myself into the screen or the camera, am I coming across okay? And then as you've talked about, Burr, the breath work, right? I can hear it right now in my voice. I know that my throat is tighter because my voice is higher. And so as I'm checking in, it's like, what do I need to do to relax that throat so that I can bring my register down? So for me, it's those other pieces that are kind of physical and kind of energy.
I love that. It's in a micro moment, the first step is self-awareness, that check-in, to not notice your voice is changing, to not notice how your body's feeling different in a movement, to not notice where your self-talk is, where your thinking patterns are, your internal biases. That's the first step, is that self-awareness. Because if you don't have that awareness, you don't know what's going on. So then you don't know what to implement. Yes. Any thoughts on that, Rosanna?
I think that it's really important to know that these micro moments can come from many different sources. It can be, like Linda said, that it comes from either pain or a twinge or a feeling in your body. It can come from you made yourself a list and these are the things that you want to work on. It can come from habit. It can come from an outside source. It can be something that you see that goes, oh, it makes you think of, oh, I wanted to work on that, or I heard something about alignment. What am I doing right now? But it all comes down to the awareness, to know where your body is in space, what you're doing with your body, and not just your body, your thoughts, your breathing, your what your nervous system is doing in that moment. Are you able to recognize when your nervous system is overstimulated? And what can you do? Can you use that as a micro moment to regulate yourself, bring yourself back down? So I think that it's really important to know that these micro moments come from all different places, but it really comes back to that self-awareness.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything they want to share?
I think historically we used to call it grounding, like maybe 20 years ago. It would be to ground yourself, so to bring awareness and attention to your feet. And that's the place where, and that may have been a yoga thing at the time. So now it's so much more sophisticated. It's kind of interesting to see the changes or a concept grow.
Yeah. And I think some people use the term mindfulness now to talk about similar things. Yeah. So Rosanna, do you have any, know how I said, sorry, Rosanna, let me backtrack. Let me preempt. Come on, what's the words? See, being in the moment, find the words.
Break for commercial.
So having a toolkit and having the tools in there and knowing how to use them is key. Similar to how Neil shared how his voice was changing and how he was feeling hypervigilant and flustered with getting on Zoom and figuring everything out and it not working in the timeline he wished. Those are good micro moments when you're self-aware. But if you use breath work, for example, and you'll hear me say this, and if you've been to any of my stuff, you'll hear me say this all the time. When somebody's stressed, people say, take a deep breath. What do? That type of deep breath is actually adds to the anxiousness in the nervous system, the stress in the nervous system, versus taking a full, slow, relaxed breath, which is so that's a micro moment right there. Doing a full, slow, relaxed breath in that micro moment to help slow everything down. That helps. One step, that's one strategy that you can use for your breath when it's feeling tense, pressured, and not the tone that you normally speak in. It's that when you're feeling those emotions of flustered and so that's one strategy. So Rosanna, anything you want to add?
I think that we want to talk about how these micro moments are different than the traditional fitness or wellness strategies. How taking this ripple in time, this 10 to 60 second pause, check in with yourself is different than the traditional modalities of, I'm going to go to an hour-long yoga class. I'm going to go lift weights at the gym and I have to follow this specific program.
Anybody have any thoughts on that or anything they want to share?
The best way I thought about it was a practice. It becomes a practice, so it just becomes what you do. It isn't even something you put on, it comes from the inside out. So setting up environments to support the practice, setting up the toolkit to support the practice, right? And I was never a gym goer. I did go to classes, but I never had a regular gym experience. So, yeah.
And so Burr's going to talk a little bit about comparing micro moments with the traditional fitness or wellness strategy. I just want to add before she does that neither one is right or wrong. They both have their place. I myself go to the gym. For me, it's a self-care because it's time away from my kids. I like that time where I'm not being interrupted to be able to go and exercise. But I also very much love the micro moment strategy. I implement things into my life many times a day where I can take a minute, ground myself, figure out where I am and what I need in that moment. So they're both very important.
And what both of you speak to is exactly what a micro moment is. So how about I give an example what a micro moment is not? There's a place for each of those, but it's not what we're referring to for a micro moment, such as going to the chiropractor, having a massage, These are the answers that I get often when I ask people about their self-care. They say going to the chiropractor, getting a massage, a mani-pedi, going to a yoga class. It's all these external things. And these external things that they answer take up at the most 1 hour a day. But what happens in the other 23 hours? So leveraging micro moments and the strategies that we talk about here at Meliora, myself and Rosanna's strategies, are how you can fill up, maybe not fill up, that's not the right word, but how you can use moments, use strategies in those 23 hours a day when we aren't with a professional to help us with our self-care.
Absolutely agree, Burr, that finding ways to still look after yourself and your health and your well-being in those other 23 hours a day, rather than focusing all of your effort on that 1 hour and then forgetting or leaving yourself or not being mindful or present within yourself for the other 23.
Yeah. So I know, Rosanna, you're about a lot of things, but one thing that you talk about often in your work is alignment. Can you share like a tool, a strategy of what alignment could look like in a micro moment?
So without going too much into detail of different alignment points, I will share that one of my micro moments that is automatic for me now is when I am in my car driving and I stop at a red light, I check in with what my head is doing. Is it way out here in front of my body? Can I take a moment to, one, figure out why I'm stressed and it's way in front of my head, why I'm holding tension there, and also to correct it. So the correction there for me would be to lengthen the back of my neck, tuck my chin in. But it's also, like we've been talking about, that micro moment, that check-in, that mindfulness to say, why is my head way out there? And how did I not notice it until I've been stopped at this red light? And finding other moments throughout the day where you are maybe not, you're in the middle of doing something, but you have a moment like standing in line somewhere, waiting on a phone call, being put on hold, whatever it is. Those are things that I have now put into a micro moment of check in with your alignment. If I'm standing in line, I'll back up so you can see me here. Am I standing with one hip way out to the side? Do I have a foot turned out? Am I really twisted in my torso? If I'm standing in line and I'm waiting and I don't have a toddler running off in another direction, I can check in and think, oh, okay, I want to bring my weight back over my heels. I want to make sure that my pelvis isn't in either very untucked or very tucked position. I can check in with my ribs. Are they relaxed down? And the majority of the time when I'm not in alignment, it's because I am overstimulated or my sympathetic nervous system is just tense. So being able to have those moments in your day be a ping for you to check in with yourself is a really good way to use these micro moments, to leverage these moments in your day where you can check in with your health, take care of your mental health at the same time as taking care of your physical health.
Thank you, Rosanna. For any of you listening, this is our world. This is the language. This is what we talk about in our fun conversations together. So please give us feedback. Does any of this make sense?
Yeah. If sorry to jump in there, Burr. No, it does. So I'll share a little bit from my perspective and what my takes are, and please forgive me if I'm wrong here. But how I see it. So first of all, I'm a very busy individual, and I liked what Linda and Colleen are saying. It's like I think that your strategies, and I use the same strategies, not the same, but what I'm looking for with strategies for myself is to have a moment for myself. If I can get, I don't have kids yet, but um, I do have a lot of people always wanting to reach out, engage with me, contact with me, different kind of things, organizations. So sorry, that sounds, but it's people wanting your time. And something that people aren't aware that it's like I have no problem with that, but I'm also have a lot of anxiety and stress when it comes to meeting new people. People think like, but you're so bubbly and happy. I'm like, that's a front I can put, but internally I'm like super nervous and anxious. And they're like, but you don't seem that way. I'm like, years of experience maybe like masking that. So I'm taking like micro moments and even looking at it. Um, that even sometimes I've done those where I'm like self-checking, but I'm not conscious about it. And what I'm hearing for me, it's, and again, maybe from a business perspective, if you're like a small business owner and you're dealing with a lot with your employees, with your family, with clients, with vendors and different things, this could be very useful because you need to sometimes to check in. Like, are you raising your voice? Are you losing your cool? Are you making the right decisions? And even the posture. Um, yeah, there's sometimes where I'm just like so tired and stressed, and I'm like, yeah, am I standing correctly? Is my hip out of place? Is this gonna maybe like then now that I'm turning 40 this year, is this gonna later on affect my back and hurt me later on during the day? Maybe I shouldn't sit this way. Maybe I should sit differently. But I think the two things that take away from me is that micro moments can be helpful when you don't have a lot of time for yourself to kind of give that time for yourself back. But the other one too that I'm kind of seeing and noticing, it's those wellness check-ins, and just being like, are you okay? But how do we emphasize it in the strategy? And I can see this being very, very useful for small business owners who sometimes aren't aware, like, holy, my stress has gone really high. What is that? Why are we having problems when we didn't have it in the past? And little micro moments, because we don't have a lot of time, are very, very beneficial. So yeah, so I just wanted to share that. But no, this is very, very interesting conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for sharing that. And we have had conversations in the past. So yes, exactly what you're saying is increasing your toolkits for those moments. So entrepreneur, and even in the work environment, how much burnout is there? High stress, high demand. So I used to work in the emergency room as a nurse. High stress, high demand, shift work, 12-hour shifts, no breaks. It was nonstop. I didn't have the tools and strategies then. Now, when I'm not in the emergent anymore, but when I am in high stress, high paced environments, I have a whole chest full of strategies I use, everything from alignment and fascia to breath work to self-talk, posture, how I communicate, the speed at which I'm moving my hands. So I remember when I'm at work, especially in AHS, when I grab something, I won't just grab and start moving things. I'm mindful of each step. So if I'm opening up a syringe for some medication, I'm slowly opening the package, noticing the sound, the feeling. That brings me present moments and how that relates to our nervous system. It regulates our nervous system. So I love going into the science, but I keep being told not to get into the science. There's a time and a place. Today's not the time and place. But essentially here, everything you're talking about, there's so many tools and strategies that we can develop to help with all those, especially when you don't have time. And carving out that hour in a day to go do to the traditional gym or fitness or the sitting in meditation and mindfulness, you name it, or going even for a massage or a yoga or whatever class, that's hard to carve out that time. But also that carving out that time, that's 1 hour in a day. If you can do, say, 5 micro moments every hour throughout the whole day, that actually adds up to more minutes than one class, one session, whatever appointment that you have. 2, similar to what Rosanna and Linda talk about this a lot, about sitting on the floor, doing work on the floor. Sorry to speak on this, Rosanna, I know this is your thing, but
Okay.
when you sit on the floor and then you stand, when you come up off the floor, that's equivalent going down to the floor and standing up. That's equivalent to a squat. When you go to the gym, you might not do 20 squats, 30 squats, but if you sit on the floor, you're doing 20, 30, 40 in a day. That's micro moments that have a big cumulative effect. So Rosanna, I have a question for you. What about people who have different length legs and their structure doesn't really work for them and puts their body into out of alignment? It's like different like scoliosis or different length legs. Do you have any thoughts on any of those of how somebody can implement a strategy?
So I think if you look at it more as a whole of somebody who has some kind of limitation, they might look at a traditional exercise or wellness program and say, that just doesn't fit me. That doesn't work for me. That doesn't work in my life. And I think what we can do with the specialties that I have and that you have, Burr, is give people tools that they can implement into their life, with the big package being that they don't take extra time in your day. They don't make you put something extra on your to-do list. You're not having to check another box. It's just something that fits seamlessly into your day and that you can do. And it is so personal to what fits into your life. Something that works for a busy professional who is in the office for 14 hours a day is going to be different than a stay-at-home mom with a bunch of young kids. It's going to be different for somebody who travels a lot on an airplane, or somebody who is able to be outside working a physical job all the time. So those strategies and those tools, although similar, are going to be very specific to that person in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, so we just have a comment here of somebody saying that that's why they started running, for that time for themselves without anyone needing something from them. So
absolutely.
I want to build on this type of story. So going back almost 17 years ago, I was early 30s. I was fit. I was average weight. I had a good career. All my objective measurements, like when you go to the doctor, they check your blood work, blood pressure, and they do your joint reflexes, everything. On every measure, I would have been considered healthy. Then I had my health changed, my health status changed. I became medically disabled. So how can I go almost overnight or within a short period of time from every realm you look at, a healthy person, to being medically disabled? So there's a mismatch in how us in society measure health, well-being. And I was that mismatch. I was the sum and accumulation of that mismatch. So I've spent the last 17 years diving into physiology research, finding the new current research, and FYI, new and current research that's really amazing can take up to 20 plus years to become common practice if it doesn't conflict with common practice, and if it can make money. If it doesn't make money, then it doesn't tend to make it into mainstream. Sadly, but fortunate at the same time, most of the work that Rosanna and I do and then under Meliora Wellbeing is not the stuff that makes money. It's the stuff to give you the tools and the strategies for you to be autonomous in your 23 or 24 hours in a day, for you to build your toolkit so you can be in charge. So the healthcare system has its place. And as I said, I was that healthy person. I fit that mold. But yet I wasn't healthy because if I was, I wouldn't have had those health challenges. So I had to reevaluate and find new measuring sticks and new ways of defining what healthy was for me. And that is the foundation of what Meliora is. Any thoughts, Rosanna?
I agree with you. There is a time and a place for Western medicine and the medical system. I think that anything that doesn't make money and anything that is outside of that mainstream is a really hard sell. I think that it makes it. Oh, we had a poll pop up here for.
Sorry, I did it a little early. Sorry for that.
Okay, that's okay. I'm just gonna move that out of the way. And I think finding ways that you can be more autonomous, that's the word that you use, Burr, to be able to take responsibility for yourself and your health, while also finding community in that, because we are co-regulators. We are a community of people who need other people, which became very evident in the last 5 years of society. And that we just really need to find avenues for messages like ours and other businesses who are trying to promote these more holistic or outside of the mainstream modalities to get them to more people.
Yeah. And sadly, I think you and I, both the core of our being, we want to take this toolkit of strategies and just go blah and just insert it in your head and your brain. But sadly, it doesn't work that way. I can't really do that. I can't be like an AI and just upload it and have you know it. So it does take time, does take effort. So the first step was today having a conversation. So right now, does anybody have any questions about anything we talked about or to build on what we talked about?
I don't know if this is the right place or no to ask, but I'm really curious about your other offerings. I know you maybe don't want to comfortable talking about this, but I'm curious just as I'm going down the questionnaire, and you're hitting a lot of areas that I'm trying to deal with. Like I like how you put in emotional well-being, physical health, stress management, sleep quality, nutrition, work-life balance,
Yeah.
and strength and endurance. One of the things that I actually look at as managing my health and being fit is endurance. A lot of my days are 12, sometimes 14-hour days, and I need to keep going.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're from 8 to 8 or 9 to 9 or whatever. And endurance is a big one. And I see people able to do that, and I'm like, how are they doing that? I have no clue how they do it, right? So that's a really important one. So I just wanted to just give you guys some feedback on that as well.
Okay. So did I hear a question like what other offerings do we have outside of this? Okay, so that is a great question. So we have courses online. They're self-paced courses. So I have ones that I've done for myself, one on breathing, one on health literacy. Rosanna and I paired together on having a movement and a breathwork course that's online. And Rosanna just launched last week a course just that she was doing herself. What's it called? The Functional Movement Essentials. So those are self-paced online courses. On June 1st, we're planning to launch a membership where it's similar to these discussions, where we have discussions, we have courses, we have classes, we have guest speakers. The whole umbrella of health literacy and everything that we would put under micro moments will be in there. So Rosanna's building that out. Do you have any more thoughts you want to add to that one, Rosanna?
Yeah, just if this conversation spoke to you, if this resonated with you, it will be more of this and more of these tools and how to use them and how to fit them into your life. And like Burr said, that will be in conversations like this, and some worksheets that'll be sent out, and some pre-recorded things, and guest speakers that come on and speak in another format like this. And I think that I'm very excited about it, because I think that it's going to be such a great way to get people together and discussing this and get the message out.
And part of that membership too, there's going to be times where the courses we already have built out, we'll offer those for free as part of the membership. Just in those down times, like say summertime, and people might not make time for live events. So we'll make a mixture of things available, live events, recorded stuff. And the one other piece that we do is there is private sessions with myself and Rosanna that we can book. So if you're interested in that, two things. Why I can put an email list in the link here. While we do that, if you're interested in filling out the poll there, just helps us with feedback. And there's a message here. Thoughts of key messages that resonate are evidence-based, wellness practices, self and co-regulation, and community of practicing care. Yes. So a lot of what Rosanna and I talk about is scientifically based. It is evidence-based, has statistic base. Often some of the research is a little bit lost because it isn't the type of research that makes money and gets a lot of funding. Second part of that is I'll use the Oprah Winfrey aha moment of once you practice some of these micro moments or these exercises, tools, strategies, you don't care about the science and the research. You know what the physical sensation is, the benefits you get from it, and that's all you need. So while you fill those out, I will copy this here. So this link I'm putting in the chat now is how to get on the email list. Oh, I just direct messaged it to one of you. Sorry. Let me redo that one.
While Burr is doing that, I'm just going to add another micro moment that I've been doing the whole time that we've been on this call. Is I have this little half dome down at my feet, and I've been stretching my calves, putting different areas of my body, of my feet onto the dome to allow me to not just stand static the entire time that I've been on this call. It's just one of the tools that I use, and that's something that I would teach in that membership and in the online courses as well.
Awesome.
But this is really great information. I'm really resonating with a lot of this. Yeah, definitely interested in a lot of what the offerings are. Especially the stress management and the micro moments. And again, a lot of us, maybe I'll speak for myself, we might not have that time. And I like how you break that down into a lot of different kind of micro moments and how that can add up to an entire day. So no, I really appreciate that, and thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. And the membership course or program that we're planning on doing is also set up for busy people. That's our plan. That's our goal. We're also busy. Rosanna still has 3 young kids at home. I have 3 kids that are teenagers, several different jobs. We don't have that time to sit down for this hour like we did tonight, once or twice a week, or at least every week. So we're going to set this up for small little manageable chunks, like say, there might be some hour-long sessions, but our goal is 5, 10, 15, 20, like manageable things that you can work on at your own pace, and some live stuff that we'll hopefully record. So there's one more poll I would like to, oh, what happened here? Did that launch? Nope, it's not there. It's launching now.
No.
So if you're on a cell phone, you might not be able to see all of these. I've heard that in cell phones, some of these polls are too long and you can't see them all. But this is just a poll about how do we do, any feedback you want to give us tonight.
All right, while everyone is finishing that up, I think Burr is just going to go over the takeaways from tonight.
Are you able to do that, Rosanna? I'm just pulling something up here.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about a micro moment. What is a micro moment? We defined it as a ripple in time, something that is 10 to 60 seconds where you are mindful and present and trying to figure out what you need in that moment for yourself, for your health, for your well-being. And talking about how you can find micro moments in your day. Where do those come from? Sometimes they come from pain. Sometimes they come from something you see while you're scrolling on your phone that reminds you that, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. They can come from your coworkers, from your kids, from your family. And we really want to talk about continuing to explore and learning new micro moment techniques. So what are these tools that you can put in your toolbox, and how can you use those tools in your life to help improve your health and well-being?
Thank you. In the chat, I put another link. So on May 16th at noon, we're going to do another event. This one is, it's going to be more of Rosanna's specialty. It's about getting movement at work. Anything you want to speak on that, Rosanna?
Just that even if you are at a job where you are at a desk all day long and you're required to be at that desk, whether you are interacting with clients or you're on the phone, whatever it is, that there are ways that you can fit movement into your day. And if that interests you or resonates with you, please come to the class, because there are going to be many tools given out there that you can use in your workday.
Yeah, again, that's going to be similar to the micro moments, just the toolkits you can put in your micro moment toolbox. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we go?
Thank you for doing this. It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. This is really well thought out. And I'm just impressed about the whole process, and even the next a session. So yeah, definitely gonna be sharing this on LinkedIn. Found this very,
Amazing.
very, very, very useful. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. If you want to know more, and I know you're very well connected, if you think it's relevant and you think people would want to have a specific for busy professionals or entrepreneurs to have something specific for them, we're more than happy to set that up. We can talk.
Okay, perfect, great. Okay, because that was gonna be my next question. Yeah, so let's talk afterwards. Perfect.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, everybody. You're appreciated. Remember, one micro moment at a time. First step is maybe your toolbox might not be overly full right now, but first step to fill up your toolbox is a self-awareness with grace. So instead of, oh, I'm super stressed and I need to fix that, just say, no, I'm super stressed. I've noticed that. That's a win. I'm going to work on slowing down. There's a huge difference of, like I said in the slide, between the hypervigilance, the negative self-talk, and the self-awareness and having grace with yourself. We want the graceful side, the kindness side. There's also a lot of science behind having that grace, that recognition, and positive self-talk.
And
Anyways,
really taking the should out of it. There is no should that you should be doing. It's what feels good to you and what is going to be helpful to you.
awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for hosting and giving us the space. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank you.